Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Real Deal Landman Show. Drew Hopkins, Jerris Johnson, we are excited to see you come back and join us for another episode. We mentioned in the last episode, one of the neatest things about this whole Landman Show on Paramount Plus is that it's really putting a light on, just the landman profession and all the big just inner workings of the industry. And one of the things that Jerris and I talked about last week was just how much that reminded us of all the people that helped shape our careers and who were the landmen that we looked up to along the way and continue to look up to right now. And one of those people that came up was Larry Coshow. We both worked with Larry back at Chesapeake for years and just absolutely have enjoyed following his career ever since then. I mean, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, you've done what? Sampson Resources, JMA, Chesapeake, SandRidge, Highland, Sierra Resources, and now Novo. And I mean, you've been able to add some incredible insight to each one of those. But first off, thank you for coming on. And
Sure.
I guess the number one thing is, are you watching the Landman Show? Yes?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay. So the first thing as we kind of throw to you and just start talking about your career, I would say 11 minutes into the Landman Show, we had everything from, we had a guy get shot in the head. We had Billy Bob Thornton chug a beer, smoke 2 cigarettes. We had maybe 8 to 10 kilos of, we're not sure if it was cocaine or heroin. A truck ran into a plane that had landed on a Midland highway. So at what point did you kick back in your chair and be like, that really takes me back?
Well, I can't really associate with any of the things I've seen so far or had any experiences that, Billy Bob had.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the joy of it. We're getting, in that first episode, we're getting a look at what Paramount and what the writers of the show have really shown of what their vision of what this landman character is, of Billy Bob's character, Tommy. When you were first starting out, like, what got you into the oil and gas business? What was the thing that really pulled you in?
Yeah, good question. Ideally, my intention was to go to college and become an engineer. And, I had a chance to go to the Air Force Academy and out of high school and play football at the Air Force Academy and then go into engineering. But, I just, I guess I was immature at the time. An 18-year-old guy, I'm like, I'm not sure I want to go that far away from home. And so I decided to go to OU, play football, and go to school. It was after the first year of that freshman year that I decided, I need to decide whether I want to be a football player or an engineer because, I'd never made anything less than a B. In high school, I made 1 B and the rest of them were A's. Well, I get that first semester of school, I've got, 2 C's and the rest of them B's. And then that second semester, going into spring ball, I'm like, man, I got a chance to really make some noise here on the football team because that All-American I was playing behind now got drafted. And so I made 4 C's that second semester. So I decided, maybe I need to decide if I want to be an engineer or be a football player. And of course, being the athlete that I was, I chose football. And so I started looking around and I saw the concept of, in the business college, back then it was petroleum land management, not energy management like it is today.
Right.
And, I'm like, I like business. I like that concept because I kind of grew up, in an oil and gas family. My father was a frac stimulator for Halliburton for almost 20 years. And so I was around it and I wanted to be in the oil and gas industry. And so I chose that path to go down being a landman.
It's fantastic. And then, so whenever I first met you, I think you were working Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle for Chesapeake.
Yes. I was
that
working
it?
Western
So
Oklahoma in the Texas Panhandle.
Texas Panhandle. So seeing some of those shots that the show has, did that really take you back of seeing I mean, you're seeing the Permian Basin there, but did that scenery kind of look about the same?
Yeah, because it seemed like I spent a lot of time out in the Texas Panhandle. and it's flat. And so, West Texas is pretty flat for the most part. So that kind of brought back some memories of all those times I've driven to the Texas Panhandle. Just to kind of back up a little bit, when I first got out of school at OU, I went to work for Texas Oil and Gas, or TXO production, which is now Marathon. And, I'll never forget the first day I show up for work. I get assigned to the Oklahoma City office, and I go the first day, and, we're in a room, and my boss was Monty Barnhill, and, drill sergeant background. And, he asked a question, hey, is anybody, grew up on a farm or familiar with farms, stuff like that? Well, my hand was the only one that got raised. And he said, you're my surface landman. So they handed me a keys to a 4-door Crown Vic with crushed red velvet seats, bench seats.
Nice.
They didn't have that stuff. So, man, I'm like, oh, man, I got a car. And then they handed me a credit card that I could fill up anywhere I wanted to. And called my parents. I'm like, hey, man, I'm living the dream, man. I got a company car and a credit card, and I'm about to hit the road. That first year, I put over 80,000 miles on that car.
Holy
and
smokes.
Just basically driving, Texas, the Oklahoma Panhandle and the Texas Panhandle, just settling damages and staying out ahead of the rig for TXO. It was a great opportunity. I learned a lot. I had to check my own records. And so I had to go, find out who the surface owner was. But, to date me, back then we didn't have computers, didn't even have cell phones. So you had to use the old phone booth that sometimes you'd see in a town on a corner street, or stop at a convenience store and go in there and back then it was a dime, and then it became a quarter. Just to go make a phone call to set up a meeting to meet a surface owner.
Holy
So
cow.
in all of these discussions with surface owners, how many surface use agreements did you have to negotiate with a burlap bag over your head and a gun pointed at you?
None.
That
Never
can't
had
be
anybody
right.
pull a gun on me.
But I saw it on
threaten me
TV.
or tell me to
so
leave.
What was, how about the worst, I don't want to say the worst confrontation that you may have had, but do you remember any salty episodes of going out and talking to different owners?
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of times you had to go to their turf, and most of the time they were on a tractor, or they were out cutting hay or wheat, or fixing a tractor, that kind of stuff. So I just showed up and or they'd tell me, hey, can you come back tomorrow because I'm really busy. But nobody ever pulled a gun on me. I never really had any confrontational encounters with anybody where they say, hey, get off my land. You're not welcome. Because most of the time they knew I was bringing money.
That's right.
And most of them wanted a well on their property, and they wanted the well named after them or after their wife. So we were always changing well names to fit the, just so we could get that signature on that agreement.
Changing the well names after they go through a messy divorce, and have to change it from Cynthia to Tammy or something like that.
Yeah.
It's always nice.
Close to the burlap, most of the time I had a Underwood typewriter, so because we didn't have computers, and I had the little blue ink so you can make copies. And so I literally typed the surface use agreement on the back of my car, because it had a nice little hood, little square. So I could set my typewriter on that and type it out, get a draft paper, put the dollar amount that was agreed to. I was a notary. And so, little did I know, nobody told me that I shouldn't be notarizing a document that I'm having somebody sign. But luckily my signature wasn't on it. But it's like this minor details, Coach. We just need to get the agreement done. And so we can move that rig in.
So
go ahead.
Oh,
Jerris.
sorry, Drew.
No,
So I was gonna say, so I never had the chance to work with Larry directly at Chesapeake. He was obviously a name and a legend, not just there, but within the entire Oklahoma City land community. But I think the first time I really had a chance to talk to Larry was at an education event in Tulsa. And I don't even remember how the conversation got started, but I got to hear the stories of some of these big company names that we've heard of and his involvement early on with them. And I was just mesmerized. And I think by the time we got done talking, we looked around, the room was empty. But, there's some stories there that I don't know that a whole lot of people realize, like your early involvement with SandRidge and your early involvement with Chesapeake.
Right.
Enlighten some of our listeners about some of the, a true pioneer is what you've been in the Oklahoma City land community.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of that stuff that you've done.
Okay. That me getting to Chesapeake was a kind of a story in and of itself. Aubrey called me.
That's why we're here.
Back in 1999, asking me I was at JMA Resources Company at the time. I was heavily involved with JMA. We were out leasing, Western Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, had a rig or two running, that kind of stuff. And Aubrey asked me to, hey, can you come over and talk to me? Well, I didn't know what he wanted to talk about because, if there was one company that I was competing against for leasing out in Western Oklahoma was Chesapeake. And so I go over to see him after work, talk to him. And, he was talking about, us butting heads. When I say us, Chesapeake and JMA butting heads, and want to know, about, if we could work something out. And I said, what'd you have in mind? He said, well, I want you to come work for me. And I said, no, I'm not interested. And so I leave. I knew him because I always had to deal with him because he was always working poolings and so forth, and getting him and Tom Ward both were working our poolings and picking up interest and participating in wells. So it wasn't like I had never dealt with him before. And then he called me the next day, offered me to come in, and, 3 or 4 times I just say, hey man, I'm not interested in doing it. Man, I've looked at your balance sheet, because he wanted to know why. And I said, man, I've looked at your balance sheet, man, times are tough. This was 1999 when prices were low, activity was starting to slow down. I looked at his balance sheet and, people were talking in the community about, hey, Chesapeake's going to go under. And so, I went to see him one more time. And I don't know, I just walked away with a feeling internally that, that I want to do it. I want to go help a guy, because that's always kind of been my thing that I always look at. And even today, I just look back at the times I've changed jobs and went to different places as I went to help somebody that was a friend, somebody that I respected. I had a lot of respect for him, and I went to work for him, and he put me out there in Western Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle. Of course, we had to do a little workaround agreement with Jeff McDougall at JMA, because of a non-compete type agreement that I had, as an employee, non-disclosure agreement. Right. So we worked that out. That worked out good for Jeff, because he got a chance to participate in wells based on the acreage we picked up. When I got to Chesapeake, I worked in Western Oklahoma. Man, we had 50 rigs running. I had like 60 employees on my team, and we were just blowing and going. And people were like, man, that's a lot of wells, Coshow. Well, we were drilling vertical wells back then, and there's times we may have 3 rigs on one section, just pincushion drilling one well after the next vertically. Then one day Aubrey came and asked me if I would move to the Barnett and help that team out. That was a new team because he had just bought a company, and he wanted to move into the Barnett because, man, back then it was Mitchell Energy. They were going strong, which later became Devon and EOG. And so I moved in there and started a team from scratch. You were talking about some of the things that I did. We were kind of late in the game, so to speak. Not really late, but the party had already started, and we'd already missed a few dances, and we needed to pick up acreage. And of course, you're working in metro, high density homes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I came up with the idea to do a little event, and rented out a convention center in one of the counties, and put on a little, barbecue, and we basically put on a little presentation that, who we were, because nobody knew who Chesapeake was. And, but they knew Mitchell, and they knew EOG, but they didn't know us. And so we put together a little program, and I had a bunch of, my landman, my staff and brokers. We had, back then we had computers by that point in time, and we were signing up people, leasing. You bring your deed in. I mean, we put it in the print, we put it in the radio, and the next day Aubrey calls me and he said, "Hey, what'd you do in Fort Worth last night?" So, man, we had a party, had a big barbecue feast, had a big lease signing party, and we signed up a bunch of leases. And he said, "Man, I just got a really strong call from one of the CEOs, and asked him, what were we doing down there, having a lease signing party." And I said, "Well, man, Aubrey, we're a little bit behind. We need to catch up." And he said, "Well, how'd we do?" And I said, "Man, we knocked it out of the park." And so he was glad to see that we did something like that. And it wasn't something
do you remember how many leases?
Man,
how many leases you might have signed from that?
Oh man, we signed well over. There was probably 500 or 600 people that showed up, and then they're calling their people, some of their friends on the phone and family, saying, "Hey, you need to get down here." That first night, we probably signed well over 1,000 leases, and because I had a lot of people there, filling them out, and I was typing as fast as I could, and all my staff was. So we did a nice haul, and then it really ballooned the next week, to 2 weeks. Man, it was really strong, and then of course it forced the competition. It caused the prices to go up naturally, but it was better for those people as well.
Did you invent the town hall leasing strategy?
Yeah, I did. Because not too long after we started the Barnett, Aubrey moved me over to East Texas, to Haynesville, and we did the very same thing there. And same thing happened all again. We really got in there. That was my last stint at Chesapeake, was the Haynesville, East Texas. And in that 1 year, we leased over 1 million acres in East Texas, and Louisiana. Did a great job. At the same time, we were running a pretty aggressive, drilling program as well. And then we were looking at, you were starting to hear a little bit about the horizontal stuff there early on, and we started drilling some horizontal wells in with some of our vertical wells to start developing that horizontal play that was going on out there.
So Larry, I don't know if we were at the same event, but I almost feel like we were. A lot of the stuff that I was asked to do was going over to the Haynesville. I go to Shreveport and Bossier City, yeah. And I don't know if it was an event, but it sure sounds exactly like what you put on. I remember they rented out. It was like the fairgrounds in Bossier City, and I remember the parking lot was absolutely filled with cars, and we had those tables all set up along the backside, and it was helping people understand how those leases were figured and how the royalty rate was figured, and just going through. And I remember it was 2 days of it, it was like a rock concert. It was absolutely amazing to be a part of. And then many times going back after that, I would venture to guess that you and I were at the same event there. And that was one of the first things that I remember from my time at Chesapeake as well.
Yeah, that was toward the end of my time there at Chesapeake. One of the things that we did, and it just we were having trouble in East Texas, especially, getting into the abstract office or even getting into the courthouse because things were really hot. And one day I went into the abstract office, sit down and start talking to the owner of the abstract office and say, man, I think we could really help you guys out because your records aren't digitized. And could we come in, digitize all your records? And we've got the software program. Because at the time, Chesapeake, we were just starting to work on that internally, writing, programs and software to be able to do that. And of course, they were asking a lot of questions. Well, who's going to pay for this? Listen, we'll pay for everything. We'll digitize, all your indexes, your documents, everything. And then, we'll put in the computer equipment, for you to have a desk or, some workstations for people to come in and do that. Now, the only thing is, if we do this, we would like to have, so many guaranteed spots, to be able to come in and do that because, man, it was really hard for us initially without that we'd have to take a turn. There were so many people wanting to get in, so you can only work an hour and then you'd have to go off an hour and let somebody else work an hour. So, we did that. And I got another call from Aubrey when found out that what we had done, our competitor had found out, and the CEO voiced his displeasure over what we did. And I told Aubrey, I said, we left some room. We didn't take all of the workstations, but, we left some room there. So that kind of eased some of the stuff. But that was one of the early things that we did that ended up Chesapeake doing that in other counties and other areas that they worked at was digitizing the records.
I think that was one of the first things that you and I had talked about of the importance of digitalizing all of the records of a company and how you were really passionate about making sure that Chesapeake and all of those other companies were able to get all of those records off paper files into digital records, and they'd be that much more effective afterwards. So yeah, you definitely spearheaded that charge.
Yeah, we didn't buy the business. We helped.
Yeah.
And because it helped us. And then, every month they got the updates, we'd hand deliver them and they had the updates on their computer the next day. Fantastic. Which was helpful to us as well as our competition.
So tell us a little bit about the transition from Chesapeake to SandRidge. My first entrance
that was a story.
At Chesapeake was right after that split happened, and there was, somewhat of a recruiting battle trying to get the different people to the different companies. But I know that you were there early on at SandRidge, and I don't know that many people realize how instrumental you were to its foundation.
Yeah. Tom retired in, I think it was that was 2006. He retired in February of 2006. And I think then by the end of his non-compete, he entered into an agreement with Malone Mitchell at Riata and, bought that Riata's the company where they were primary focused out in West Texas, way West Texas, and down around Pecos. And, the minute Tom's non-compete, came out of place, he reached out and asked me if I would come and help him, start, what he named SandRidge, because he had just bought Riata, just closed it. He and Malone Mitchell pretty much had kind of a partnership because Riata was still in play and Malone was still into the play. And so, Tom needed help just to continue the business as usual concept. And he asked me to, come and join his team. And I was basically the first employee that he hired once he, entered to the agreement with Riata. Man, the hardest thing I've ever had to do was go tell Aubrey that I was leaving the company. And he didn't take that too favorable.
I imagine not.
he had his his restaurant just down the street, the Italian place. The memory of the name escapes me right now, but he had his place, and man, he talked to me 3 or 4 days in a row saying, "Hey, don't do this, let's stay." And I said, "Man, I got to go help Tom," because Tom and I were good friends, and had gotten become pretty close because I worked with him every day at Chesapeake. And we started, SandRidge, and then, Drew, you mentioned, the hiring and all that other stuff. I had several people wanted to come, and join what we were doing. And that in and of itself didn't set too well, with Chesapeake, and rightfully so. I understand all that. But we, were charged with putting a team together. And of course, we started out as a public company. But, Tom was like, "Hey, the time is now. We got to be drilling now." Well, Tom, we just started, a week ago, and he was ready to start with the drill bits and all that other stuff and get those going. And so, we hired a team, and probably within, I would say, 3 months, man, we were already running 15 rigs, and put together a really fine team of land people. And Tom wanted to set, SandRidge up just like Chesapeake. I want you to set it up just like Chesapeake. Everything, all the disciplines, reporting, all that stuff across all, channels of communication. And so we, put that together. And then we took the company public a year later. And 2000, that was 2006. 2007, we took the company public, and made SandRidge public. And it was like the highest, opening, IPO at that point in time that the private or the public company trading had seen. I think our stock opened at something like 18, and it closed at like 26, in 1 day period. And then, man, when we did that, the company really took off, and we had a great team, a lot of people, a lot of success, doing that.
Absolutely. It's just a combination of, I think that's a steady point throughout your entire career of all the different companies that you've worked for. You've been able to surround yourself with really good people. Know the talent, and you also know how to put in place being able to provide that structure and that balance to be able to make sure that, land processes and just everything else that goes along with kind of that executive management run smoothly, which is always, it's incredibly impressive.
When I look back, the people that I, brought in on the land team, it wasn't long ago, I kind of reflected back on, the people that came on board and, joined our team. And man, you look at that team today, and man, it's a who's who. Some of them are
absolutely.
CEOs, some of them have started their own companies, and it's just, it was truly amazing. It just, it just goes to the talent that, and the passion that these people, took on, and being successful and wanting to grow and be a part of something special. And that's what being at SandRidge was. It was a very special time.
That's awesome. It really does show that the right people were you guys were finding the right people, but also a huge part of that was those guys were being trained by some of the absolute best. And that just is a feather in your cap, even whenever you are wearing your cap, which I know is right next to you. But you've put so many people in those good positions to where they are in leadership positions just all over the country right now, which is great.
Larry, we really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us and to tell us about your story and to share your wisdom. So with that, we'll let you go and continue on with your day. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, well, thank you guys for doing this. This is a lot of fun. It's my kids always hear my stories. I've heard my stories, and one of the things that I'm working on is trying to put a book together of some of my stories, especially on the professional side. And then, there's some things that have encountered along my life, some life lessons that I've learned, being, in the roles that I've been in and working with the people I've been in. I want to, share some of those stories. Now, will it ever become a book? My boys thinks that it will be. And, they, were saying, well, hey, Dad, Kevin Costner should play you. And I said, dude, man, he's too good looking for me. Man, they need to, I did take a Billy Bob, would be a good one. And but man, he's gone on to already to a landman. It would be a conflict for him if he played.
It probably would. Now, I will say with Costner, he just got killed off on another show, so he's probably looking for work. Well, hey, Larry, honestly, thank you for being on here. We are huge fans, and thank you for your friendship over the years. And if you're ever out at any industry event, I mean, and I'm not just talking about like the NAPES, I'm talking about any land event that's out there. Chances are you're going to run into Larry there and pull up a seat next to him, introduce yourself, and I promise you're going to learn something and just earn a absolute wonderful friend for life. So thank you, Larry, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your show, and thanks for joining team. Getting together and putting this, because we really need it in our industry. Because we're going to get to like the real landman on this show, and
that's
none
right.
of the stuff that we see on TV.
That's right.
So we're going for it, Larry. All right.
You
Take care, man.
Good loss.
How cool was that?
I know we could have done an hour and a half long. We could have done a 3-hour show. I need, at some point we got to stop this to do bathroom breaks, so, I would love to talk to Larry on a weekly basis because there's just so much there. There's so much that we can glean from him. And I'm a big fan.
I mean, if you're going to call it the Real Deal Landman Show, what better
good to start
way
with him, right?
Than to have a real deal landman. Oh yeah. Did you? He's in the book The Frackers. Did you know that? He's featured.
Yeah. But it's amazing. I mean, I would think it'd be weird if he wasn't.
One of the things that really stood out to me is as he was telling us about these different jobs that he took, he never said, I had this really cool opportunity for a promotion, or I had this really cool opportunity to jump in on the ground floor and get a bunch of stock. In each instance, he said, so-and-so needed my help and I wanted to help them out. That's how he phrased his way of transitioning to a job was, I wanted to go help so-and-so out.
I've talked to him multiple times at, different events and just kind of rehashing the past with him and everything. And to exactly what you said, he always was talking about how can I take care of my team first, and whatever happens with, me, that's the second, third, fourth, fifth down the list. Like, I want to make sure that all of these people are taken care of, and not just financially, but he wants to make sure that good things happen to good people. And he's just one of the best.
Absolutely. So we've been joking about behind the scenes about some of the things that we're hoping to see in the show, in the Landman Show. One of them was about Ford Raptors. Like you were really hoping to see some Ford Raptors. Now, I hadn't thought about it, but Larry actually brought up a good point. I mean, if it was going to be a legitimate Landman Show, there should be a Crown Victoria tearing down a Caliche Road.
There really should be. Well, yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I really want, and I mean, we are early in the season, right? So I would say by episode 5 or 6, I think we're going to be seeing, at least one or two after a payday, seeing those guys just kind of lined up outside the Ford dealership, just putting their money down, making sure they get the some sort of wrapped Raptor around there. And yeah, it's bound to happen. But what did we say? Last week we were talking about, we were like, I mean, what are we going to see on the first episode? We're going to see a blowout. We're going to see all this stuff. And I was sitting there like with my wife. I was like, there that is. But I really didn't. I would love to know the reaction of so many people that had watched it, of, like the show comes on, and the very first thing is, Billy Bob Thornton, or Tommy, as we call him, on the show, Tommy with a bag over his head, and the guy gets, shot in the face, and it's this drug cartel. And I kind of had that weird, I had this look like I was cracking a safe or something. I was just like, where are they going? Where are they going with this? So it sorted itself out quite a bit, but man, the first 11 minutes were, it was intense. They were definitely trying to grab people's attention for sure. What do you think of Billy Bob's character? What do you think of Tommy?
Of his character?
Of his character.
I'm trying to do the math on this.
Right.
He talks about billions of dollars of development being done on this lease.
Right.
But all we've seen so far is the CEO, and I guess the company just has a landman. He is the landman, and then there's some field hands, and that's about it. And
he's got a petroleum engineer and an attorney that he stays with at the house, right?
Yeah, but I'm hoping that Tommy Norris is getting paid a boatload, because he's doing the job of the landman, the surface landman, the HSE guy. Somehow he's also writing the rig schedules for who's on which cruise. He's delivering
he was
the bad
picking who's
news.
on the cruise. He does all of it.
Now, if there was that type of disaster on a pumping unit, trying to understand how that would happen, but let's say there were. I did enough blue collar work early on in my youth that I think I might be able to figure out which valve to twist, but I seriously doubt the first call would be to me to be the guy to go out there to put out the fire.
That was one of the things for me too, is I was like, I know he's hauling to get out there, but we really haven't, put a plan in place other than just letting the landman go out there
just
and
call the landman.
Yeah, just call the landman. He'll figure this out. He's got this taken care of.
That is your whole organizational hierarchy, is CEO call landman. That's it. That's all you need.
That's totally it. I like Tommy. I think Billy Bob. We said it last time, and I'll say it again. Billy Bob Thornton is one of my favorite actors. He's hilarious. He's that dry sense of humor. I feel, and this is I want to say that this is a Real Deal Landman exclusive. So whenever you tell this someplace else, make sure that you quote that it's here. I feel like that Landman and the movie Bad Santa are in the same universe. And I feel that, and so stay with me here. You gotta hang on this. So his character, I think his name was Willie Soap or something like that in Bad Santa. The same sense of humor, the same no respect for authority, the same just a disdain for, I don't know, life in general. Even so much as the same jokes he does in the episode 2, whenever he's going back and forth with the police officer.
Yes.
He references a joke, which I don't know what our show's rated, but I'm not going to repeat it, verbatim.
Yeah.
But he references a joke that was basically in Bad Santa. So, and he talks about early on, doesn't he? He says, this is a place out in the patch where a felon can find work and still make 6 figures. And for them, it's a what did he say? It's a lottery ticket. And so I feel like his character in Bad Santa, and I'm only really doing this because we're getting close to Christmas, right? But character in Bad Santa gets out of jail, decides to go clean. That's maybe his second or third wife from that movie. This next girl that just has an absolutely filthy mouth, and his daughter here, totally separate marriage, but I don't know, try to convince me otherwise. I really think it's all connected.
So are you saying that Tommy Norris is actually a mall Santa during the Christmas season?
I think he has given up the life of Christmas Santa-ing, and he's totally focused now on his landman role. But I think, yes, I mean, it's more than obvious to me that he robbed department stores for years.
But he also shows up on the sideline of the Permian football game. So which is it?
That's right.
Is he a Santa? Is he a coach? Is he a landman? What is he?
Do you feel like since he is the landman, he's basically running the town, and so whether
He
he
is.
wants to go, if he wants to go stand 50-yard line, like it's all him. And that was the football stadium there in Odessa, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I was trying to look up like a lot of their shooting locations, and like I know they did a lot out in that area. They did a lot right outside of Fort Worth too, but I'm trying to figure out some of the places. I think they had some gorgeous shots of just like overhead of all the different pad sites and everything. Like it was very well shot. It looks beautiful, and that's hard to say a lot of the time with Midland.
So there was the part where the attorney was going to be flying in, and at first he was supposed to go pick her up, and then said, "Hey, I've something blew up. I got to go put the fire out. She'll have to get a rental car." And when he made a comment about the attorney needing to get a rental car, I actually laughed out loud. And I just said, like, no, good luck with that. You know, if there is a rental car, it's going to be a minivan with a flat tire and just like caked in red dirt. That
You're right.
If there's actually
totally
a rental car available.
I can't remember. So Amy Hopman and myself went out there one time, and we rented a car, and I want to feel like it was like I want to say it was a Volkswagen Beetle convertible, and there was no reason. It was like the last thing that they had. It was something really small, but we went out and we made the rounds, and then we were coming back in, and I just remember just, like small Midland airport and just the way everything operates like a little bit differently. I remember I drove up in like a line, and I didn't know really where to drop it off, and like just a random guy appeared out of nowhere, and he was like, "Give me the keys, I'll take it the rest of the way." And we were in a hurry, and we went off, and I got an email like a couple weeks later from Enterprise, and they were like, "Hey, we didn't get the car returned." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, the car got stolen." I gave the keys to a random person. It ended up, it was okay. It was not stolen. It was found on the lot. But yeah, the Midland is a different place. It's very, very friendly, very much a lot of what we saw in the episode. But yeah, there was a lot of liberties taken for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned something in our notes. You said something. Did anyone else have the American Petroleum Institute commercials? I didn't get any. Did you get API commercials?
Did you not see them?
No.
Okay. Now I don't want to be like controversial. I don't want to be like, I want to be very right down the center of the lane here. I love the American Petroleum Institute. I think they're fantastic. I want my daughter to grow up and marry one of the American Petroleum Institute people. I don't know. Like, they're fantastic. The commercials that we had, I had 3 of them on ours, and it was right in your face. And it was like, "Hey, we know, we love drama. There's all sorts of drama on this show. Just letting you know, in the oil patch, not really that much drama. Things are pretty cool. It's a very boring job." Like, and they downplayed the craziness of the show. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I can see why. Like, I mean, that part I totally understand. Of they're watching out for the industry. They're making sure that nothing is overblown, or it looks like too dangerous, or it looks like, there's too much craziness that goes on in this. But like on the other side, like I'm like, people that are watching this hopefully know. They're watching it like Yellowstone, watching, like it's in the similar vein of, that's not really how like ranch life is, right? For like Yellowstone. Or so, like the thing that I was talking about today is, I was like, there's a show on every Monday night that you might know on like USA Network, WWE Wrestling. Like, in the middle of WWE Wrestling, we don't go to commercial, and it doesn't show like Oklahoma State University wrestling program, and it's like, listen, just letting you know, like I know you saw a suplex there. That's not exactly a suplex. That's not how this whole thing works. Like, I don't want to say that we don't need that explanation, but I think pushing it too much, like off the front, I think that kind of comes off like a little bit, I don't know. It was fine, like one of them, but I didn't need like 3 to 5 of them, because that looked like something was suspect.
I feel like that in your case, obviously it's all data driven, right? So you were being fed commercials that would be more for a more intelligent thought process and something that could potentially drive a discussion on your end of the television on, what is really happening in America's oil and gas industry. For me, all I got was fed commercials of Sonic. That's all. Was Sonic
feeds a lot of good conversations. I'm not gonna lie.
So you got Drew Hopkins, devilishly handsome John Hamm doppelganger, who is discussing the finer points of American energy politics, and you have Jerris, who is being fed
looking for
commercials.
The footlong cheese coney special, $2.99 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Too long.
But overall, I am saying the American Petroleum Institute, fantastic organization. Like they are doing their due diligence, making sure that this goes along. It's the first time that our industry has had like a spotlight on a show like this. I totally get it, but I also want to throw the other side to it. What else with the episodes? We've got Connor is his son, who wants desperately to be in the oil patch. We've got his daughter, who I don't know her name, but she's a character in and of herself. The actress I know is I think somebody put on that she's like actually 27 years old, and she's playing like a 17-year-old. And I know there's always those age discrepancies, to play these different parts. But I was like, man, again, missed opportunity. If we're doing that much of discrepancies like with age, I was like, how she dated like the football like star, how that was like part of the episode.
Yeah,
we're talking West Texas. Should she not have had like Jason Vanderbeek as the West Canaan Coyotes?
Oh yeah,
that would have been if he had been like, yeah, I'm kind of a football superstar, or whatever, like would have popped me so much. That would have been awesome. That'd be good. But she's her own thing. We did see John Hamm just a little bit in it. His character, I think, will be more defined over the next few weeks, as he's like the owner of the company. He's who Billy Bob yells at on the phone every once in a while. We got to see.
My favorite character was Michael Pena's character.
I know, and
I keep hoping that maybe they're going to find that the worst didn't happen, because he was like my favorite guy in it.
I honestly, I was pretty excited too, because I didn't know he was on it, and when he showed up, I was just like, all right, like this is going to be good, like good. And
he was a good
extra
guy
comedy
too.
relief. I know.
Yeah, he was like a guy that you would want to be around for the duration of the show.
I feel a little bad of Connor, like has a first day where he gets like. I like that they showed like the little bit of the oil rig like hazing or whatever, and like I thought that was kind of funny. They mentioned like 3 points of contact of climbing, like up a ladder. He did not do it well. He fell. So his first day on the job, like he's excited, like he falls. He kind of bonds with him, and then like day number 2, like his entire group just gone,
evaporates.
So it just absolutely just gone from the face of the earth. So. It's a rough 2 days. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time, like my first day of like Chesapeake, and I can't compete with Connor. I'll tell you that much.
It was interesting watching him be in a crew cab truck, and he was the only gringo that was in there, and everybody else is speaking a different language. And I have totally been there. I was early days when I did some oil field work, I was placed with the Hispanic crews, and thankfully, luckily, I knew enough Spanish to where I would know if they were talking about me or not. But just
are you bilingual?
Totally out of place. Yeah,
no kidding, dude. That's awesome. That's really cool. That's good experience. That's a really cool experience.
Yeah, we have received some reviews.
Well, lay it on me.
Yeah. So we got somebody who I know. We'll just call him Tony. He said, just listen to your new podcast. I think this is going to be very entertaining. And he asked, how often are you going to do these? And our hope is at least weekly, right?
We hope weekly throughout the first season for sure.
And then we got another one. Enjoyed listening to your podcast today. Great job. I was disappointed you didn't share any Mr. Potato Head stories, though. And that's going to be
honest. My mom's just learning how to use the computer, so she's going to be weird on some of these comments. What's
Just
the
finished
Mr. Potato Head deal? Do you know?
He's a landman. Maybe we'll get him on here sometime, and he can fill us in on the Mr. Potato Head character. I don't want to ruin it. Yeah,
I like it.
Just finished the podcast. I'm not a landman, but it was really entertaining. You two have a good podcast duo vibe, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts.
I mean, I don't want to say it's going to be, taking over Joe Rogan at some point. I mean, I know he's got a few listeners, but we'll probably get there. I mean, don't you think? Give it like 3 to 4 weeks till we really catch our groove, and then after that, it's just smooth sailing.
I can confidently say that
I don't know.
Our listenership is and listening rate is actually doubling every day.
Good night. I gotta hire personal security at this point.
Do you?
I mean, how am I supposed to walk to my car after this is over? Hey, so you did the reviews. One of the things I wanted to look at is I was checking around the old LinkedIn to see what people were saying about the show. And so I captured just a few of them, and I love that. Like, LinkedIn is about my only social media, and so to be able to go on and see what people are saying. So if you've posted something out there and you're talking about the Landman Show, I may read it on here, but I just want to see what Jerris thought about these. Okay, so the first one I got is he says there's very little truth to how this depicts the energy industry. I've never met a landman who carried a fire jacket and a 24-inch wrench in his pickup. Never have I met a landman who would go into a burning field to turn a valve. The scene was ridiculous and a dangerous depiction of how true emergencies are dealt with. Many more errors and flat-out lies. The most egregious, and I read egregious, and I was like, man, I'm from Ponca City. You got to slow that down. Like we got to shorten some of these words. Is the way the landman, the most egregious is the way the landman speaks to everyone, including the boss of the company. Maybe that behavior would go in the 70s, but it is not acceptable since I joined now. Jerris, your thoughts?
It's. I mean, I don't. Yeah, there's a lot of. There's a lot of truth there.
No, there's a lot of truth there. I would say, and I mean, again, like the API thing, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they're not making this. If they were making this to really be a landman show, it'd be interesting, but it would honestly just be a ton of these guys. And I got my landman blue blazer on today, right? And it probably wouldn't have the excitement. Yeah, this looks very napey today.
Yeah.
I know they're making the show to get the viewers. They're going to take certain liberties with it. There's going to be a lot of things that we probably don't agree with. There's going to be a lot of things that we can really pick apart or put under like a magnifying glass here. But on the whole, it causes a discussion, right? And that's what we're really going for. The second one I've got is really enjoying this so far. It's a great show that I focused my career on. That said, a couple of things stood out. Watching Billy Bob run around, interacting with the police, and even working on the service rigs felt very off. As a landman, I've never picked up a wrench unless I'm helping a farmer in a barn. The police interaction also felt very dramatic. Again, agreed, right? I mean, I agree with some of that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I've known some landmen that wouldn't be afraid to go toe-to-toe with the law.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be one of them, but I know some who would.
No, I can actually, I think there's some, and just like what you said before, some that might be able to come on here and we could have some pretty good stories told. But yeah, I completely agree. There's some interactions there that get a little dicey. Then the last one was almost the polar opposite of that first one. And that says, what is a landman? Billy Bob answered this question better than I ever have. I watched the first episode, and while it was entertaining, I'm glad I didn't have to run into that much danger. There was one time a landowner came out with a shotgun, but he turned out to be very nice once he saw the lease terms. So we've got, just like with everything else, we've got polarization, right? We've got people that really, really are, looking at this and finding, the issues. And we've got other people that are, saying, hey, I've run through some of the same interactions, but I'm just seeing it more as a show. So That's what's going to be fun about this. And that's what's going to be fun about the conversations that we're going to have about it, for sure.
Yeah, there is one thing that is often said about the landman career. And in fact, the Landman Club has a video that talks about what a landman does. And a phrase that is used in it, I think more than once, is that a landman wears many hats. And that's absolutely true. Like it's a very, very dynamic profession. Hollywood is dramatizing in terms of how extreme the differences in what that profession can be. Certainly not as dangerous as what's being depicted, but yeah, it's definitely a place where, or a job where you wear a lot of different hats and you do a lot of different things. And dare I say, it's a lot of fun.
You dare. You definitely dare. It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. And that kind of brings us to the end of episode 2. You should have worn that whenever Larry was on. Larry's got one of the best cowboy hats I've ever seen.
He does. I know this isn't really a cowboy hat. But it is my favorite hat. Yeah.
When you see Larry across like one of the Nape auditoriums or something, like he looks like he's straight out of casting, like for this show. Like, I mean, he's got the cowboy hat on, he's got the boots. Like, I mean, the guy's living it. He's fantastic. That's
oh yeah. I mean,
pretty salty hat you've got there.
You told the audience to, if you see Larry, sit down with them, strike up a conversation. If you don't know if you've met Larry before, you will know when you have seen Larry. He has gorgeous silver hair that runs down. Sometimes it's tied up, sometimes it's not. Oftentimes you'll see him with his cowboy hat. But based off of that description alone, you'll be able to say,
I bet that's
and you will be right.
Show. Yeah, for sure. Well, until next time, thank you guys for listening, watching. We're having a blast with this. Keep giving us feedback. We want to make sure that we make it better each week for you. And this is the Real Deal Landman. See you next time.
Peace out.